I'd say going, Neil.
All right, good. All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Tonight is April 17th, 2018, 5:30, regular Board of Trustees meetings. David?
We'll call the roll. Mr. Genowine. Here. Mr. Crandall.
Here.
Mr. Mahoney. Here. Simcoe here.
Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, do we have any approval of the minutes from April 3rd?
I'll move approval.
Second.
We'll call the roll. Mr. Genowine.
Abstained. I wasn't here.
Mr. Crandall.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes. Do we have any additions or deletions, John?
I have none.
Good. How's vacation? Good?
So far?
Hearing of the public, do we have anything on that?
Anybody signed it, Mike? Nobody signed it.
Okay. Zoning Department. Darrell.
Good evening.
Evening.
I have a monthly report for March for zoning. Permits issued, we have 41 permits issued for the month of March. That represents just under 20% increase in number of permits. Estimated dollar value, we're down 78.5%. That's mostly because of last year. We had $10.5 million estimated value due to commercial construction. So that's largely why this year's figures are down. Compared to 2 years ago, it's a little bit more in line. Year to date, we're at 96 permits issued and estimated dollar value of just under 10.9 million. And that represents an increase of 3% in number of permits and a decrease of 55% in estimated dollar value. Single-family dwellings continue to roll along, knock on wood. 35 permits year-to-date through the end of March. That's a just under 21% increase from last year. Estimated value is down 9% from last year, and the estimated value per dwelling is $274,000, which is about $90,000 less than where we were at a year ago. But if you look at the 3 previous years, 14, 15, and 16, we're right in the range, actually above all of those. So it's looking more and more like last year was just sort of an anomaly in a good way. Zoning complaints, we had 14 for the month and 26 year to date, down from last year. I don't recall what the weather was like a year ago, but I'm thinking we might have had an earlier spring and had complaints earlier. Ironically, I was looking at a year ago today, we had our first high grass complaint. I think it's going to be a little while yet before we get our first high grass complaint of this year. Monthly meetings for zoning. The BZA had 1 variance request, and zoning commission and project plan review do not meet. And items of note, I'll let you read those over at your convenience. I just want to mention those zone changes on McCord Road and King Road. The Township Zoning Commission heard those last week on April 11th and recommended approval. Those will be before the trustees on May 1st. And the update to the land use plan was also before the Zoning Commission. They recommended approval on that, and that will also be before the trustees on May 1st. And that is all I have.
All right, thanks, Darrell.
Thank you.
Rob.
Good evening. I got a couple items on the agenda. I'll start with the monthly report. Just to begin, we are in our spring pickup, even though it still feels like winter. It's going very well. There is quite a bit out there, more than I anticipated for this time of year. But a lot of that's leaves left over from last year as well. So some notes on the monthly report. We did have 3 snow and ice control events, about 55, 56 hours of overtime. There was no summer fill through the ODOT through the state of Ohio this year for the summer salt fill. The minimum requirement was 1,000 tons of ordered, and we only had room for about 600 to put in our dome, so I wasn't able to order. The price for this winter fill is anticipated to go up about 30%, so we'll see what that difference is. The crews completed our catch basin throughout the township inspections and clean out, and we prepared the association cemetery for Easter. We had 276 OOPS tickets with 69 locates for the month. Generally, it starts climbing this time of the year for construction purposes. And we received our new hot box and training and orientation on that as well. You can see nothing significant in the service department, just routine maintenance on those individual pieces. And as far as maintenance, department, just regular maintenance, snow and ice control, and he did his monthly fire extinguisher inspections. And we did a little bit of training. On page 2, some of the bigger projects. We're still waiting our plans from the county for our OPWC and our resurfacing. We're preparing for our curb repairs and our ADA upgrades this summer. We did complete some drainage improvements and received reimbursement from the stormwater utility on some of those down in 5. T-Gen Road has also been completed. It wasn't put on there. Our crack seal program was sold through the county. It came back at $1.22 a pound, which is a fairly good price on that. And we're still awaiting plans for our parking lot upgrades as well from the county. So they're a little behind this year for us. That's all I have for the monthly report. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
How did today's ice thing go?
Dispatch called about 4:15, somewhere around there, and the roads were getting bad, and we called out the trucks. We had about a 40-minute delay because we had to reset them back up for snow, just put the tailgates back up. We were pretty much ready, but by 10 o'clock, I think the roads were fairly clear. I don't know as far as accidents or involvement in that. I didn't hear too much, but we hit all our primaries routes before 7:30. They were complete with the primaries, which are 35-mile-an-hours. Some of the main arterial roads like Regents Park that go through some of the bigger subdivisions, we had all those done by 7:30. So I think it went fairly well.
I know traffic was snarled up there, and I was just curious, and you know how people talk, and somebody said, well, the police are supposed to call it in and whatever.
Yeah, they did, and I was anticipated, and when the crews got out there, they called me back, said, yeah, roads are slick, and from what I understand, there was several accidents. I don't know if they're on township roads or county roads, city roads, but I believe all the crews were out. City of Sylvania, county was out, so.
Thanks.
Yep. The second item I have on the agenda is I wanted to give you an update on the proposed bikeway, Sylvania area bikeways initiative. As part of a committee member with that, Tina Cog, and as part of the overall plan for the land use plan, and some of the recommendations that were put in the survey when we sent out the survey, we've kind of moved forward with a few items. The county recommend, I don't know if you can expand that, Scott, a little bit further, because there's some roads that they can't see. In the purple areas up here, these are some of the roads that, township roads, this is Quarry Road. Some of these purple roads, they recommended for different usage for signage. The solid lines, they recommended for share the road signs. Those roads would qualify for somebody riding on the side of the road, and now the law is 3 feet, so they would be able to use those roads. Some of the other roads in the township that they recommended, like Irwin, Wolfinger, Sequoia and Persimmon and Coy Road, they didn't have enough shoulder to do a share of the road. And so they proposed to do a bikes may use full lane for those roads. I do not recommend Quarry Road and Wolfinger Road at this time for share the road signs. These signs are regulatory signs, so they're white signs. You can be enforced by law enforcement with them, basically what I mean by regulatory. So at this time, I'm recommending, and I have a resolution on the agenda as well for these roads, that Persimmon and Sequoia and Irwin, our section of Irwin, be a share the road signs. This will help the connectivity as one of the recommendations throughout the land use plan was to try and connect neighborhoods and put the connectivity on the existing use of the bike path. So putting Irwin Road on there actually connects Bancroft to the Sequoia Metro Park, and eventually Wolfinger I would recommend once we do the resurfacing of it, because we're going to do a bit of a widening and resurfacing. Right now the road is just in poor shape, the edge of pavement, and there's no center line or edge lines for that road. Quarry Road, if you could go to the next map, Scott. The reason I don't recommend Quarry Road is if you look at the township crash study data, that section of Quarry Road is right up in here. And these dots, these orange dots represents injury crashes, and the yellow dots represent non-injury crashes, property damage, stuff like that. So it's one of the highest crashes in the township, crash roads in an actual township road, not a county or a state road. So that's why I don't recommend moving forward at this time with that section of Quarry Road and being share the road. One of the other reasons is that 7,282 feet of the 7,800 feet is a no passing zone. So if you have a biker in front of you, and you know how drivers are, they're going to try and get around them, legally it would be difficult to pass on that road. So you'd be creating a situation where you're trying to force people to do illegal passes. Plus the reason why it's no passes is the hills, the intersections that come out and the intersecting roads. So I don't recommend it at this time. So you'll see in the next item in the resolution, which we'll go after, we'll show you this Parks and Trails. This is just another update to this. This is I can't hardly see it, but I'm pretty sure this is the University Bikes Trail right here. This is the proposed extension from McCord Road, this area, this is McCord Road, and this is where the bike trail ends right here, right now. The county is... King, yes, I'm sorry, King. The county is proposing this right here. This is funded through the side of the old landfill, and I believe it comes out to Silica there. And if you look right up in here and down in here, they have proposed parking facilities. So this is all county-led, this is led through the county, but it does affect the township and does create connectivity with some of them. The ultimate goal is to reach the park area up here. But as of right now, the first phase of this will be from King Road up through to Silica and then cross down, and this is when the 10 Mile Creek project takes place. They will build the rest of the bike path on there. The second phase of it up in here has not been funded and it's not been completely planned and solid yet, mainly due to there's natural geological structures in here, rock face, that is going to make it difficult for them, so they're going to have to continue looking at that. So just wanted to give you an update of where the Savannah Area Bikeways Initiative is at, and if you had any questions on that before I moved into a resolution on it.
When do they plan on starting with that, or?
Well, second or third quarter this year is when they're supposed to be starting on the 10 Mile Creek project, so I haven't had a complete update when the bike path, they've already did the preliminary clearing through here, put the stone in there and cleared the brush away. I think part of the funding for that is tied to the 10 Mile Creek project. I don't know offhand, but I'd have to get Ron Myers from...
No, I think that's separate, Rob.
Is it separate?
Yeah.
I'd have to get Ron.
They're gonna just do the embankment part of it, subgrade,
Okay.
and the bike trail comes later. But I'd like to talk to them if we could get this thing coming this way. You know, cutting through the center where that doesn't...
I mean, down Silica?
Seems to be, yeah. Maybe we could talk.
Well, I know there's the facility there, right in here, there's a sanitary pump station
Yeah.
in there, so there's some logistical issues there, and,
That's back up here.
yeah.
There's a pump station there. But that parking lot looks all right, but I think maybe run it this way.
I don't know what their future land use for that property is too. There was discussions
Yeah, maybe we
of a
could
joint
follow up with the-
area for a secondary salt dome as well in that area.
Great presentation, Rob, thanks. I'll offer resolution 18046 to install R14 bike use lane signs.
Second?
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work. Hi, Mike.
Hi there. Good afternoon. You've already received the monthly report. Actually, on the front page, I wanted to kind of point that out. That was our retirement of Badge 1, which is Dave Hatfield, and then Chief Freilich celebrated his 30th year on the department, so that's Chief Freilich on the front there. Page 3 and page 4, EMS and fire responses were down a little bit from last year as far as total runs. However, our mutual aids received are up from last year. And the bottom of the page where I'm keeping an eye on the overlapping, we're actually down a few percentage points this month, in March this year versus last year. So in a way, that looks good. Incident types on page 5, we're still seeing the same percentages. 73% are EMS-related incidents. Page 6 is our total, what types of runs that we've had in March. Page 7 is our transports, what type of runs where they were transported to. We did have 69 medic 61 transports in March. See, page 9 has our mutual and automatic aids. That's working out real well for us. Community risk on page 10. You'll see there was a picture on the bottom left of Brent Haven and Convent that had over 500,000 hits on our Facebook page. That was the floating BMW on a above-ground pool. Quite interesting, but over 500,000 hits on our Facebook page. I actually got a phone call from California, a gentleman from a news company out there wanted to know if they could use the picture. And I'm like, we don't have rights to it, but yeah, if you want to use it for your nightly thing, it made it all the way to California. I thought that was quite interesting. Page 11, again, we did quite a bit of training. Obviously, we did a lot of indoor training because of the weather. Myself and Chief Nye went and seen a gentleman named Billy Goldfetter, and he's very big on everyone goes home, close calls for firefighters. He's well renowned all over the country, and we were actually able to go see him in Rhino for free like the third weekend in March. It was very well attended. It was very great presentation. Page 12 actually has some pictures of the guys out doing some training. They were able to get out a few days in March, hit or miss with the weather, kind of like today. And to kind of follow up on the weather from today, we were quite busy from like 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock with only really 1 inch of the accident, but we were out on quite a bit of stuff. Page 13 is our overtime, 69 and a half hours for the month. Again, I think we did a real good job kind of maintaining that as best we could. And then the very last page, guys, I gotta give my guys some kudos on this. There was a gentleman that had a pulmonary embolism, which for most people that know about that, very rarely do people survive from it. And this gentleman actually stopped into the engine house the other day to bring some cookies and tell the guys how much he appreciated them saving his life. So, questions for me?
His father went that way.
Really? Yeah, really nice gentleman. He came in, actually wanted to talk to me to tell me, how impressed with our guys he was, and just happy to be alive, so. All right?
Thanks, Chief. Any
All right,
questions,
guys,
guys?
thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, I'm going to do something probably a little bit different here when you look at the monthly report. I know the first couple I went to look through. If you notice, after you had a chance to look through, there's no statistics in there this time. I took that page out. I was looking at that, and we're rethinking what we report, how we report it, and everything else. Some of it, we're getting the information from Norris, and I looked at some of the numbers, and I said, these don't seem right, so I'm not sure we're getting some accurate data from Norris. My experience with them, they can sometimes not be the most accurate. So we're going to see about getting the data in-house. We're going to rework. I'm looking at some of the stuff that I think we're going to want to report and what we don't. It needs to be useful. Just getting data for the sake of getting data doesn't do you any good. So it's part of, it's been a month and I'm just trying to look at everything, and that's one thing I'm looking at. So if you notice there was no stats like that, that's why. I just kind of want to give you a few highlights. One good thing, we did have a very nice arrest in March, which just lets you know for the citizens, it's a good PR. It was great police work. A basic traffic stop for speeding evolved into they fled from him and tried to get away. They corralled all 4 suspects. Ton of stolen property in the car. The victims didn't even know they'd been, they were breaking in cars. So it's great when you recover, residents' stolen property before they even know it was stolen. So the whole next day, we spent trying to track it down, call people up. It was from Sylvania Township, Toledo, Praisburg Township. They'd been all over, they were sitting on fishing rods, all sorts of stuff. So we got some nice, citizens don't like to get broken into, but it's great when you get called and say, hey, we got your stuff, before you even know you got taken. So that was a nice highlight that we had. We're moving forward on hiring. You'll see there's going to be a resolution next for that. They had 2 people they had identified earlier, so brought them in, re-interviewed them both, made a selection on one, because we have an officer that's going to be retiring here in June. So we're trying to get him, get a little ahead of the curve in the place here. We still got to do psychs and some of that stuff to get him hired. So we're moving forward with that. We have promotional interviews tomorrow. The process was missing the final component. They've done testing, assessment center, so took a look at what we need to do to finalize that. So we're going to do that tomorrow and get our list finalized, because it's a good chance by the end of the year we'll have some openings. So we're moving forward with that. The other thing, since everybody's been talking about the weather, I just let John know, roads were salted great, but the 23, evidently the state didn't do the best job, but we had an officer this morning. Good news is the officer's fine. He got rear-ended big time and probably totaled a police car on 23 South. He was up there, he'd been there like 25 minutes trying to slow traffic down, get it over, because there was an accident up ahead that OSP was dealing with. Somebody come along too fast, slid, and plowed in the back end. So the preliminary indications I'm getting is the car is probably totaled. Good news, she had insurance. So hopefully we'll get some money from her, so at some point you'll see a resolution to replace the car. So, yeah, all is good on the township roads. The highway road's not so good. The accidents, promotion, hiring. That's kind of what I had for you highlight-wise. We got the resolution. Do you have any questions before I move on to the resolution? No. Okay, the resolution number 18-047, that's to hire an additional police officer. Well, I shouldn't say an addition, it's a replacement. To hire a police officer to replace one that's going to be retiring. So.
I'll move resolution 18047.
Second. Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Okay, any other questions?
Thanks. Paul? Sure.
That was his first report of a hopeful many. My first resolution is to accept a street lighting petition And to set the date for the hearing, we received a petition for Waterside Sylvania Plat 3 for Gulf Stream Development. We have the petition, and we're going to set the date, May 15th, 2018, at 5:30 for the hearing.
I'll offer resolution 18-048, accept street lighting petition and set date for hearing.
Second?
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
My next resolution is to promote our part-time fiscal analyst to a full-time fiscal analyst and the fiscal analyst too. Many months ago, when we learned of Linda retiring, we looked at Karen to take over for her, and she's been part-time this whole time being trained, but now it's to a point where she's starting to do the actual payrolls, and she's also doing her other job as a fiscal analyst. So at this time, I would recommend bringing her on full-time so she can do both jobs. Later this summer, we will probably be doing a resolution to hire a new fiscal analyst too, to take her place. So as she gets closer, as we get closer to Linda's retirement, we'll have Karen train the new person that will take over for Karen's job as Karen takes over for Linda's job. I hope that's not too confusing.
No, it's good move. I'll offer resolution 18051 to promote a part-time fiscal analyst to full-time.
Second.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
My next item on the agenda is a SAGR discussion. I have our attorney, John Burrell, if you want to come on up. There are some questions and possibly more questions about requirements to be a SAGR member and how the SAGR's tax comes about and that. So I'll turn it over to John and any questions for him.
Well, we start with questions, because I'm not sure exactly what the questions are, so.
Well, I think I was the one that initiated this. I first wanted to know what the requirements for a SAGR board member, because last July we had a member of the board who has since resigned, but was telling us that since he had some sort of lease or something in our community, he was allowed to be on the board. And I wanted to get clear, because we've got that seat open, and I just wanted to make sure that we do it right.
To be a member of the SAGR board, you have to be a resident of the district, which encompasses the city, the township, and the school district. If you have someone, and to be a resident of the district, you have to have an actual, they call it habitation, a fixed place of habitation. You have to have basically an address where you live, but you do not lose residency if you, like if you're retired and you spend part of the time in Florida, as long as you have an intention of returning back to the district, to your address in the district, then you remain a resident. Not of the district, but of Ohio.
What if you declare your residency in Florida?
There are a lot of things, yeah. There's some rules that you're presumed to, spouses are presumed to be residents of the same place. But if you do declare residency, you register to vote, say in Florida, you get a driver's license. If you had from time to time, people get the homestead exemption in Florida, then you would more than likely lose your Ohio residence. But the mere fact that you go there and spend even years in another place you do not lose your Ohio residency or your district residency because of that, as long as you maintain the place you have here, which would include an apartment, a lease. We've had people just be having rooms, basically roommates, someone just renting a room in someone's house or staying there. We had someone in the Board of Elections a few years ago, actually lived in Youngstown, but had a room here in the township. And the person backed that up and said, yeah, he has a room that's available to him, and when he returns to the area, that's where he stays, so that person was a resident of the county.
Then my second question was, what is the township's responsibility with SAGR and the distribution of monies?
SAGR is its own separate political subdivision, just the way the township is. It's its own taxing authority. And that board, the SAGR Board of Trustees, has responsibility for overseeing the operation of that district, including money, just as you oversee the operation of the township. They don't need the township or any other member's permission to have to put a tax on the ballot. As I said, they're their own taxing authority. So responsibility for governing SAGR, governing the finances, the day-to-day operation. I don't think it has any employees, but whatever it does is up to that Board of Trustees. The township doesn't really have any oversight.
why are we responsible to appoint 3 board members and have one elected, is it a requirement that one elected official sit on that board? Because again, that's what, it was my understanding.
Under the agreement, board appointments are governed by an agreement that the 3 entities have when they formed St. John back in, I think it was '88. And it's either one elected or appointed township official. So it could be either one of you 4 who are elected officials, or it could be an appointed official. Well, the fire chief would be an appointed official. So he could sit on the board, he lives in the district.
And then how do those monies get distributed out of Sajard?
Sajard collects a property tax. Property tax is collected by the treasurer and then distributed by the county auditor directly to Sajard. Then Sajard disperses the money. Most of this money, I think, goes to the rec district. The Sylvania rec, not the rec district, goes to Sylvania rec. But it receives this money the same way the township does. Collected by the treasurer through property taxes and then distributed by the auditor.
Are there, would they pass a motion to distribute the money, or how again does that happen?
That's what they should be doing. I've never, well, I shouldn't say, I think I've attended one Sajard meeting the 30 years it's been formed. But if they're spending money or entering into contracts, things of that nature, just the way you do here, they should be passing motions to do those. Certainly to enter into contracts, to appropriate money. All those things should be done by resolution.
Okay. Well, I would like to notify the board that I did contact the Lucas County prosecutor and turned over evidence 10 days ago when I communicated with Jeff Lingo today that he is meeting with BCI tomorrow to determine if there will be criminal charges pressed in that area. Again, I feel like the township has more responsibility with it having, requiring an elected official and us appointing a board member on it. I certainly have been waiting over a year now for documents that I've requested on April 11th and continue to get little responses. I've had to hire an attorney to get those, and there's been little communication. And at my own expense, thanks to you guys, I know Mr. Burrell's department is able to respond to Mr. Crandall's emails very quickly, and sometimes they're much slower to respond to mine, but, things are moving forward. I don't want to leave you guys out in the dark with these things, but again, when an organization has over $1 million in other expenses...
Hold on, hold on, John. I have to interrupt, because I read something publicly last month. Our legal counsel has recommended that we no longer discuss Sajard as a board. You can certainly discuss Sajard off the DS here.
Hey, Neil, I was the top vote getter in the last 3 elections, and if you think this isn't an important issue in this community, you're dead wrong.
I don't care if you're a top vote getter or not. The bottom line, that is totally excuse me, if you have something to say, you can come up the DS, but in the meantime, I'm asking our attorney a question. So, the question, John, is that you asked, I read verbally an email based on the township and their legal counsel, exactly what your opinion was of us talking about Sajard publicly as a board.
Why is that, Mr. Burrell? Could you explain why that would be a conflict or concern for you that you would put that in writing, sir?
I was concerned that, as I just got done explaining, this board does not oversee Sajard. So I was concerned that some of the allegations that were being made, which included criminal conduct... Which
you're fully aware of.
I'm aware of which we report. Yeah, I'm aware of when you went to the prosecutor's office, I'm aware of that. But I'm concerned that since those are not matters that are supervised by this board, that the board had to be careful what it discussed and returns to another entity. I was concerned that there could be some liability if, I was particularly concerned about the allegations of criminal charges. Not only made here, but made other places, because that could put the board in terms of perhaps being liable for slander, liable things of that nature. And that is because you have immunity for things you discuss here that are willing to prove you of the township. You have legislative immunity. If you criticize prosecutor's office or some other office that's part of the township, that's perfectly permissible because you supervise those offices. But when you do not supervise another entity, you have to be a little bit careful of what you say. Now, if you want to say, we think Sajard runs lousy recreation programs, well, that's a legitimate issue. But when you're discussing, as I have heard, other allegations of more serious, potentially criminal conduct, that you have to be careful of, because I've said it publicly many times, you don't have any control over that.
But we do, we appoint a third of the board members.
But those board members have their legal and fiduciary responsibilities to the SAGR board, not to this board. Once you appoint them, they go on that board, and their responsibilities are to that board, not to this board. They don't have any official responsibility, official position with the township. Their position is all with the SAGR board, and that's who they owe their duty to. So if I'm a SAGR board member and I think something is going on that is improper, my duty would not be to come back here and report it, but to go to the board itself, the SAGR board, and say, hey, here's what I think is going on. That's what my responsibility would be. So I just wanted to be careful that no trustee or the township did not become liable for slander for something that wasn't within his responsibilities. And I think that's what I...
That's exactly what I said. I wish I had brought it, because I'd reread it again. It is public record for the folks that are listening. It is a public record when we read what our attorney had told us last month. Our legal responsibility is to not discuss this up front as a result of
Well, we're
potential...
going to discuss it from now till the moon comes up. I'm telling you, Neil, this ain't going away, and I'm going to bring it up every time something happens.
You have every right to individually, but not on the DS. Our attorney has told us, email, that we cannot discuss this. If you want to represent, you're the number one vote getter, if you truly want to represent them, then you need to do it off the DS where our attorney is telling us how to handle it.
Neil, I'm going to do it right here, because this is what I was elected to do, was to represent our community for the best, the citizens. And it is a large sum of money, and what I have seen doesn't make a lot of sense, and it certainly is very, very concerning to me. And like I said, even over a year of waiting for records.
How do we handle this in the future? Do we just go ahead and go down the path of a lawsuit? You've told us this is the path we're taking. Is this the smartest thing for the township trustees?
Mr. Burrell, what's your involvement? You've been witness to slander for me from the attorney from SAGR.
I have a question to Mr. Burrell. You can ask the question after he answers my question. Could you please tell me what would you tell us as our legal counsel, what we're doing right now? Is this proper conduct to represent the citizens of Sylvania Township in a potential lawsuit that you've already brought up last month that I read out to the public? Is this smart business as a township trustee?
We're talking about millions of dollars of taxpayer funds in our community, and you don't want to discuss it.
I'd be more than happy to discuss it outside the township if our attorney said we could. I'd be more than happy to, but we've been told we cannot. So why would I go ahead and take my...
This is the same attorney that responded to my email from Mr. Crandall?
Can I talk without you interrupting? Can I talk without you interrupting?
You can.
I mean, that's real, yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks.
So I have the floor. So the question is, Mr. Brown, just as I asked you, what's your thoughts on the letter, the email that I read out to the public last month, and I should have brought copies, I can't believe it. I was driving here, I'm like, I would have reread it. Sammy, is there a chance you could go back and print that? And I'll reread it, just so the public knows exactly what our legal counsel is telling us.
Well, he's right here, he can tell us, but he's also been CC'd on emails that,
So, Mr. Brown, could you please tell me what your thoughts on?
Well, I can just repeat what I said in the email. It's okay to discuss, as I said, if you think the rec district is doing a terrible job in its recreation programs, that's legitimate public debate. But other areas, and again, I was particularly concerned with allegations of wrongdoing, that could lead to possibly lead to liability for slander. I was concerned about that because this board does not supervise the rec district. So you're stepping outside something that's within the purview of the township trustees. So I was a little concerned about that. But again, if you want to discuss how a terrible job the rec director is doing maintaining ball fields or something like that, that's something that...
Well, I would like to say they're doing a terrible job with their finances. I mean, they have $1 million in other expenses. I mean, come on. They break out $26,000 worth of depreciation, but lump $1 million under other. Are you kidding me?
All right, anything else we need to talk about, John?
Unless you've other questions.
All right, we're going to move on. We've got an appointment for the SAGR board member we're going to put up tonight. We've got 2 applications.
I'd like to hold off on that if that's possible.
No, we're going to vote on this tonight.
Okay.
We've had this for 2 weeks on our in our email basket, so I'm ready to prepare to make a motion. On Resolution 18050, I point, we've got two applications, and my recommendation is we appoint David Spees to the Sage Yard Board.
Second.
I'll offer Resolution 050 to appoint David Spees for the remainder of the year. Is that good with you, John, or do you want to?
That's fine.
Okay.
I think that's good.
Okay.
There's obviously a lot of controversy here.
Well, I would, I have,
Roll call.
Can I finish?
yeah.
We have 9 months to go. I think Dave would be an excellent person. He's got a strong background, not only on
In
the
what?
district,
Roll call, Dave.
but also school board.
Mr. Chairman's calling for the roll. Mr. Demline?
No.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes. Thanks for coming tonight, John. Hey, Maureen, I see you back there. Where's your daughter going to college? Where's she committing?
Undecided.
All right, well, thanks for coming tonight. Fiscal officer, Dave?
I just really have our month-end analysis for March, and there's really not much to comment. We're only 3 months into the year. You see, I think I mentioned last meeting that we had received the property tax settlement from the Treasurer's Office, the earliest we've ever received it, which got us the money. And I guess we started getting some interest income on it rather than it sitting, with the county, and that's good for us. But if you don't have any questions, I don't have anything to add.
All right. Do we have any open discussion?
Yeah, I want to.
Please, do we have the tablet here? Hey, Dave, if you don't mind, just introduce yourself and address and all that good stuff, please.
Hi, my name's David Richardson. I live at 5730 Mitchell. And my question is, what is the policy or the law about zoning and signs? In particular, my wife and I have a real problem with garbage out on Mitchell. We pick up a lot of garbage that people throw in our front yard, and we pick up garbage for a mile and put it in bags and so there's two problems. There's a plethora of signage that gets put up on a daily basis at intersections. And I know some of it's in the city and some of it's in the township, but I can tell you that as of yesterday, from Mitchell to Plummer Pool, there is 14 lawn lion signs that are put up at every intersection of every neighborhood. And at the intersection of Centennial and where it turns from into Erie, from Sabina Metamora, at that intersection, less than a week ago, there was 14 different signs at that intersection.
Like haircut places?
Yes, haircut places, lawn places, party rental places, and it's just really unsightly, and it just frustrates me because it seems like no one cares. And it's when they see one person put something out, you got 5 more companies come out and throwing stuff out there. The roundabouts are a magnet for these things, where they put 4 in the roundabout, there's no stopping it. And it's like a weed, and it just goes on and on and on. And I would think that there's a zoning person for the township, that I don't know what their daily routine is, but if they're out driving around seeing these things, either pull them out of the ground or call these people and say, you got 24 hours to get this stuff out of the ground, because they're all in the right of way. So that's one issue I have. The other issue I have is the new, I don't know what you call it, the new senior living facility on Mitchell. When they were selling this to us, and it was already a done deal before it was even, it was already a done deal. They put this in there and told us how great neighbors they were going to be, but the amount of trash, construction trash, that's across the street from that facility is unbelievable. They've been building out there for 18 months, and the amount of trash on Mitchell that they've just left there, that's not what a good neighbor does. I live on Mitchell. I've been out there 28 years. I was out there long before anybody else was out there. And those aren't good neighbors. So I guess I want to know what we're doing about zoning and get these signs taken down and stopping this, and what our good neighbors are going to do about picking up the trash that they create. I have to sit there and listen to the sirens every day going to their place.
Great points. Darrell, if you don't mind, thank you for bringing those up.
Regarding the trash, can I ask, sir, is that construction material trash? Okay, yeah, that should be confined to the property. And do they still have construction dumpsters out there? Yeah. Okay, we can definitely look into that, because it should be confined to those dumpsters.
David?
We'll definitely check that out.
Can I
Thank
ask
you.
a question? David, did you say it's across the street, or?
It's the wind out there blows real hard.
Yeah, I get it.
A lot of the stuff just gets
So Darrell, it might not, it might be on the other side of
Right.
each other.
Yeah, we're having the same problem with Carlisle Commons on Central Avenue with some construction debris that's blowing into, I can't think of the name of the side street there, to the immediate east of them, but we've addressed it with them, and I believe it has been corrected. So we'll definitely check on that tomorrow. Regarding signs, we do pull signs in the right-of-way on the main streets, or even on the side streets. Mid-Shaw probably doesn't get addressed as often as, say, Central or Monroe. Those are usually the hot spots. So we can definitely check this out. When we do get a lot of signs from the same vendor, we typically contact them to remove their signs and also instruct them that, they can't have them in the right-of-way. If it's just random individual signs, then we'll just pull those and dispose of them. But when we get multiple signs, excuse me, like a lot of the landscaping companies or pizza places, you tend to see maybe 10 or 20 of them all in a stretch. Or haircut places, there's one haircut company in particular that is quite prevalent with signs in the right-of-way.
Do we get fines for that, or what sort of, how do we?
The township can't levy fines for signs. All we can do is pull them and contact them to remove their signs.
How often do we patrol that?
I'm sorry?
How often do we patrol signs?
As time allows.
Well, with 14 complaints a month, how often is it, we just followed up last meeting I was here.
We just...
Procedure for follow-up on complaints and things,
We just addressed a lot of signs on Central Avenue just last week.
Okay.
Again, the main places where we tend to get the signs in the right-of-way are Central, particularly Central and McCord, Central and Centennial, the Monroe corridor, a little bit on Alexis.
Do I have to report those, or do you go out looking for them?
If you call it in, that'd be great, because that's all the sooner we can get to it. But, I
can't believe he's not bringing back 20 signs every time he leaves this building. We all pass them at every intersection. On the way home to my house tonight, I'll pass 8 of them, so I don't understand, if he's going out twice a week, why we're not reducing that, and if you throw away enough signs, people are gonna stop putting them up.
Summit Roofing now is nailing in the telephone poles. So you got Summit Roofing, not putting it in the ground, but they're nailing in the telephone poles.
They're nailing my telephone poles on the roundabouts too, lawn maintenance, they're all over, you just need to be up on it, and it would be impossible to call in every sign that's out there, because if you were doing your job, you would realize it's over.
Wait, no, you don't have to call it every sign, but if you can see a general area, like say Mid-Shaw and Sylvania, Metamora. I'm sorry?
I know, part of your job is you drive around and take care of signs, because you took one out of my yard once that was 2 inches off. So I think, if you would continue that great, rules that you follow, you wouldn't have these signs all over town.
Okay.
Hey, Jane, I'm sorry to be difficult. If you're gonna speak, I would need you to come up and introduce yourself. I just can't have people yelling out in the outfield here.
Okay.
So, but thank you for your comments. All right, Darrell, so sounds like we got a little bit of work to do here, and
It is that time of year, so let's just
Yeah.
get on it and stay.
As soon as the ground starts to thaw is when the signs start
I get
popping up.
it. Just keep it on your radar. I think those are great points.
And we'll definitely address the construction trash at the senior living place as well.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn at 6:20. What do we have?
We have another item on the agenda, discussion of the email guidelines.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Okay.
Last meeting you
Yeah, that was,
requested,
I thought I mentioned open discussion, I'm
yes, you
sorry.
well, that was first, this is second.
Oh, good, yep.
You worked with John Burrell, and I sent out the guidelines to
Yep.
the three trustees and Mr. Simco and Mr. Burrell. We wanted to discuss it and see if we want to adopt them or use it as a guideline for how we'll handle emails.
I'm willing to adopt them. I hope some of the comments I provided were of value, and I appreciate you looking at it, John, and Burrell looking at it, make sure we're doing things right.
My only additional thought on that is, when we get an inquiry, a lot of times, people write us all direct and they don't copy each other. And when it needs a response, I think, rather than I respond and Neil, you
Right.
respond, John, you respond. I think when it takes a response, the administrator should put together that response with the department head and cover us all. So we're not making 3 or 4 responses.
Well, good point. Or how about this, give this a thought too, guys. If we have an email, like I sent Darrell an email about Bancroft and Shetland, there you are, Darrell, yesterday, and I'm thinking, gosh, I wonder if I should have copied the trustees. If I did that, we're going to have 50,000 emails every day. If you feel that you need to respond back to all 3 of us, great. That's kind of how I looked at those emails.
Yeah, I think
Instead of, you're going to have a bunch of emails, instead of having these guys just naturally go ahead and send them back.
This says copy everything.
Yeah, and we can do that, I don't care, but, I don't think Darrell's going to want to see, I'm not sure I care that you're looking into something or John's looking into something, unless the manager feels it's worthy of us seeing, then I'm perfectly fine with that. So what are we doing with it, John? Are we just adopting it?
Well, it'd just be, this would be our policy.
Okay.
I think one of the things, Mr. Crandall, you said is, a lot of times trustees get an individual email, or all 3 of them get an email from a constituent, and you might respond to that resident one way and not copy the other 2 trustees, and Mr. Genowine might respond to that resident another way, not copy, so then the resident gets 2 emails, maybe with possibly a little bit different, and Neil doesn't, Mr. Mahoney doesn't even know about it. So that was one of the things, is that when a trustee responds to the public, that he notifies the other 2 trustees, here's my response.
Right.
I think it should be the chairman and the administrator, and if necessary, the department head, so we know it's being followed up on, and we don't have to.
But you guys may disagree with what I have to say.
Yeah, that's.
Maybe as chairman, I'll copy you guys. So if you have a different opinion of what my thought is, certainly you can chime in.
Is it a problem?
It has happened.
Oh, yeah, I think it happens quite a bit.
I always try to defer those to the department heads and let them respond. I certainly going to.
Well, why don't we take a look at this and give you our comments?
That's fine, this is nothing urgent, we'll just.
Because the way this reads now, we got all kinds of copies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feel free
I don't want to
to.
delay it.
Did you want to speak?
Are you guys discussing on this topic?
You can come up.
Yeah, just come up to the DS.
Well,
Or the DS, the podium, sorry.
James Crosby, 4500 Block of Westbourne here. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but this last issue raises some concerns that I have as far as email responses and decision-making. if in fact that you guys are responding to situations and making a determination, and are then sending off information to the other fellows, it seems to me that you're effectively defeating Ohio's sunshine laws and open discussion of all township businesses being held in a public setting. Just my thought, you have attorneys here that are better able to do that.
Good question, Bud. JD? I don't think we're making any decisions on those, Bud, but it's a good question.
You can't have discussions by email, so if you...
So I can send an email with my thoughts.
Yeah, if you just respond to emails from citizens and a copy of the other two trustees saying, your garbage will be picked up in 3 days, that's not a discussion. So that's okay. But the two of you by email can't discuss issues, but no more than you could over the phone or in person outside of a meeting. But just for simply responding to a question, copying the other two trustees is not a violation.
Okay, all right. All right, thanks, I'm sorry I jumped over that without recognizing that. Thanks for your effort with that, John. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 6:26.
Second.
Mr. Genowine? Yes. Mr. O'Candle?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.